what is up, RotoGrinders? Dean here, Dean 7904. If you want to get all technical, 5:15 on the East Coast. A little bit later than normal because it is a short slate and an early start time, just a 6-gamer. We have all the lineups in, which is beautiful. Myself, John Breslin. Y'all know him better as Squirrel Patrol. Squirrel. It's myself and yourself for the next 50 minutes or so until Chief Meteorologist Kevin Roth comes in. I believe Derek Carty as well. Oh, you know what? It's not Roth. It's Dave Potts. Cheeseisgood and Carty. Looks like Justin Carlucci, the Luch, will be holding down Roth duties. Nothing really too dicey out there weather-wise, except for like outside my room. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but I was asking you pre-show, Squirrel, and I guess you guys can't hear it just yet, but I think business is picking up. I'll try to mute my mic. Is it annoying? Do you hear this at all or not really?
I can't hear anything. I don't know if like the people in the stands can hear, but I can't hear I can't hear any rain or anything. So.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, I guess the walls are thick enough, I suppose. I'm not really sure. Of course, you have the showdown stuff later on tonight, talking some Jets and some Patriots, which, by the way, might have something to do with our tiers board later on. A little bit of a tease there as far as the tiers. Stay tuned for that. Of course, yourself and Chop, you have your show at 7:35, 7:40, 7:45, somewhere there.
Depends on when we get rolling, but yeah, I think it's supposed to be like 7:40.
Shout out to you guys, by the way. We mentioned this on the Pick Six show. I think it might have been TJ. Somebody, and then TJ brought it to your attention or Chop's attention for the late breaking news, the Giants game. Not the Giants. I was thinking Saquon Barkley. If he could just catch that ball, it really would have made. I mean, I wouldn't have won $200,000, but I would have won a couple $1,000. And then I definitely. But when do you look at your showdown like live currently winning? Because I look at the big board, like the 12-game slate. I gotta keep an eye on it, right? But the showdown stuff, like, don't even tease yourself until when. Like, what is the moment you say, now I can look at the showdown where I'm at?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because, like, I kind of look at it like throughout the game, but it's meaningless. So, yeah, it's a good question. Why am I looking at it? I guess to like figure out if I'm directionally right with what I thought was going to happen. But like you can have the lineups bounce around so much even after the game ends, right? You'll see a stat correction. And I really don't like the stat corrections when they happen. Depending on how late after the game ends they happen. Like, well, what were we watching the whole time? If like somebody thinks they just won 6 figures and then it drops down, like that's a big drop. And like what were they watching? Especially as the game ended. But yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at it throughout the game.
Yeah, and you don't even know what you're rooting for. You have no idea. And the team you're rooting for in the second quarter, you want to be terrible in the fourth quarter. You're just bouncing all over the place. But by the way, in chat we have let's see, with 1 minute left, according to Mr. Grapefruit. That's when you can start paying attention. And even then, it's like one play you lose 20K or 30K, depending on. It's just bonkers. Like 5 yards, not even like a big play necessarily. The shout out I was giving was a Covey, the receiver for Philadelphia, was useful, and I wasn't aware of his existence until you guys talked about him on your show. And basically, he was lining up, he was warming up with the starters, and he caught 7 passes for 7 yards or something like that. Not very productive, but he good for DFS, and that's all we care about, I suppose. We're going to talk about the 6-gamer in a second. Again, we have about 50 minutes. We're going to have plenty of time to knock this out. It's a pretty straightforward slate as far as what's good, what's not good. Pitching wise, we've had a slew of good pitchers the last couple of days, so I knew this day was coming. I knew we're going to have a slate. We're like, well, where are all the bad pitchers? Well, here they are, most of them at least. A couple good ones, I guess, at least one. And we'll talk about that in a second. But I was curious. I asked you about this pre-show. You won your $200K on FanDuel last week. Congratulations to you. You did it with all players you tagged, essentially. I saw you tweeted it out. Was it? I don't know. You don't tag defense, obviously, but I don't think you do. But that was spectacular. But you were in the lead after the second block. The late games, but they're still on FanDuel. They have the Sunday night game, and you gave the screenshot with the qualifier. You said, "Listen, I know this is not official, but this is where we're at, and we're gonna root for punts and field goals." Take me through what was that sweat like? How close did it get? Because that game could have broke out, right? Houston could certainly go off, and I think Collins had a pretty game, but basically nobody else did anything. It was uneventful. You got your punts and your field goals essentially. How close was that sweat? And congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it was like my second biggest non-final win. But it was not really close. The Sunday night game went as well as it possibly could. I mean, my wife was kind of asking like, "What's going on?" Say, well, the announcers were saying stuff like, "Oh, neither team can get much going," which was exactly what I wanted to hear. Right, I wanted that kind of game. Like, oh man, both teams just struggling right now on offense. And I think the closest people to me had the Houston defense. I think like 27 or 30 points or something from the Houston defense would have knocked me out at first. So actually I had one of those like touchdown odd boosts. I bet on Houston defense to score 2 touchdowns with my
Brilliant
maximum live boost or whatever, which is already like 25 to 1. But yeah, I mean, thankfully it didn't get close, which was good. I think by the end of the game, I think Nico Collins was the person closest to me, but I could not find a CJ Stroud Nico Collins team. So I know it's like Collins would have had to get a touchdown. I guess I was sweating really in the last minute the possibility that like something super wacky could happen. Like Caleb Williams throws a pick 6, they get the kickoff, they decide to do the fumble thing, trying to get a touchdown or something like that. I think it would have been like down 8 or something like that. They could have, tried to do, just everybody like fumble it. And then if Houston got another, like Houston scored 2 touchdowns in the last minute, like that would have been pretty aggravating. But yeah, I mean, it was a sweat. I don't know how I feel about them including the Sunday night games. I don't really know why they're doing that. but
I'm
yeah,
not sure either.
Interesting sweat.
They're typically good games, though, for what it's worth. They usually have good teams and good players, like Sunday night. So maybe that's part of the reason. I'm not sure. Like we got Kansas City and Atlanta this upcoming Sunday, which is a fun game. Rice is like the most popular receiver, I think, on FanDuel. People are patient enough. He's just too cheap. But
I'm worried that there's no real thought process behind it. I think it might just be a logistical error. FanDuel might not realize they're including the Sunday night game. It wasn't like somebody decided it's best for DFS if we include the Sunday night game. I think they might not know that they are accidentally including the Sunday night game.
And now they're just pot committed to it. They have to we got to go with it now at this point. They can't stop doing it week 4. All right. Tonight, 6 gamer, best pitcher, I would say by far, talent-wise, I think, is Kikuchi. Taking on an Angels team that's not great. They're better versus lefties than they are versus righties, but still a lot of young dudes in that lineup these days. Bayo against Tampa Bay. Lots of strikeouts there for Tampa. Bad call by me the other day. Yesterday was a bad call. Bad call all around. Those things are just going to happen. I picked on Peralta. Freddie Peralta was amazing yesterday. Terrible job by me. Somebody on Crunch Time, it might have been you. I don't remember. It was like the days are all. No, I think it was Taylor. I think Taylor was touting Peralta. And I was like, I hope he's wrong. He was right. Shout out to him. And then the pitching gets ugly pretty quickly. Patrick Corbin is certainly worth picking on. A couple like star players. Altuve's not playing today. No William Thomas. We talked about this yesterday. Another thing we talked about was let's bet Philly because Milwaukee just won they locked up their playoff spot, and maybe they're going to roll out a garbage lineup. Maybe they're just going to be they're a little bit thirsty in watching the games, watching the highlights in the dugout before the game starts, and they pulled out the victory. So just a bad job all around. But that's the cool thing about DFS, Squirrel. We're all back to 0. We all started 0. A brand new game today. How are you seeing tonight's 6 gamer?
So I'm not seeing a ton of differentiation, but the ownership is always going to go to the best projected things, and so I do think we're going to see like some chalk, and might be Houston. And I like getting a little bit different tonight, and maybe I'm just putting on like my ugly Thursday night football showdown hat, and I should be waiting until 7 o'clock or whatever, or 7:40 to put that hat on. But I don't mind the idea of even playing some Patrick Corbin, playing some Nationals, and then maybe it's a homer hat too. But Corbin's been pitching a little bit better. I think the Cubs are going to be a little bit chalky, maybe, or a chalkier offense. So don't mind the idea of getting a little bit different. It's a smaller slate, so if like 1 or 2 games ends up much different than we were expecting, it kind of flips everything on its head.
Weather Edge likes that Chicago game a little bit for hitting. There's sort of a crosswind coming in from right field, but 186 games, a boost in homers at 8.8%, a boost in runs at 3.7%, 76 degrees. Let's see if there's anything else. We do have some heat in St. Louis. 89 is the temperature. In previous games, 142 previous games, a boost in homers at 4.2%, barely a boost in runs. Slight wind out to left field, about 5 miles per hour. Yeah, I mean, I think Houston's going to be popular. Bregman leading off is interesting. That's different with the absence of Altuve. Did you see the play with Altuve the other day when he got ejected? Did you happen to catch that? That was wild, right?
Yeah. He took his shoe off and he got ejected for it. But I don't think he should have been ejected. Like, he had some logic there. He wasn't just like trying to show the ump up. And he was like, I got a bruise, like on the, you can see a mark on my foot where I fouled it off myself.
He was showing the evidence. Yeah. It's like a tennis player showing like the mark, this is the mark of the ball. This is clearly where, like he's not showing him up. He's just, that's a defense. But, the baseball, it's just like there's no retraction of ejections in baseball, which I think there should be. I've never seen an ejection retraction, but I feel like that should be a thing. But to my understanding, I don't think it's ever happened before. Even when like the umpire is clearly definitively wrong and you can see it visually with replay. Doesn't matter.
But they've like thrown the wrong guy out in the dugout before, right? Like some guy's just sitting there quietly, and then the guy next to him is chirping away. Throws out the guy that's sitting there quietly. What did I do?
How do you know everybody's voices? Like, you don't know everybody's voice. There's like 25 dudes sitting pretty close together. I don't know. How do you know which one it was? Houston does have a team total above 5, despite no Altuve. They're one of the biggest team totals on the board. Cubs right there at 5 as well. Taijuan Walker throwing baseballs today for Philly. He's had a home run problem. I know the ballpark there is rougher, for homers, but I definitely want to get at least one Met stack today, just kind of banking on Walker and his home run woes. It's not a huge sample, Squirrel, but a lot of fly balls, 2.29 homers per 9. That is an egregious number. That's a number that shouldn't be allowed in baseball unless, they're like the shortstop coming in the mop up in like a 15-run game. And that's 78 innings. So a 6.29 ERA, that's pretty excessive. And the home and the fly ball is not crazy. It's 18.7%. So we'll talk about stacks later. Pitching-wise, Kikuchi. I think it's Shock Kikuchi. Speaking of guys that gives up fly balls and homers, that's basically what gets him. If he has a tough game, it's probably because he gave a couple homers, some fly balls. He's facing an Angels team that's pretty punchless. I guess if you want to give an overview, anything else as far as the overview, but by all means, let's jump into pitchers. Oh, I should mention, it is Fleet Thursday. We got to give out those clues. Yeah, the people in chat must be clamoring for Fleet Thursday. Let's go ahead and drop clue number 1. Get yourself a week free of RotoGrinders Premium if you happen to tell me what athlete I am talking about. Only answers in the Discord are official, rotogrinders.com/Discord live stream chat channel, and one guess per clue drop. The first clue is Tony. Tony is the first clue. Tony. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to game theory y'all, but it's probably not somebody named Tony. I wouldn't just do that in the first clue. Most likely. Unless I'm trying to Princess Bride you. But it's probably not somebody named Tony. Anthony is the person's name, of course. All right. Let's your thoughts as far as pitching. You said you're going to get a little goofy. Are we embracing Kikuchi? Are we running away from it? Are we getting goofier with bats and embracing the arms? What's the strategy here?
I'll probably go a little bit under the field on Kikuchi. Hold on, let me pull up my because I think it's a little bit different on FanDuel and DraftKings as well. Kikuchi's really priced up on FanDuel, and for that reason, I don't mind the idea of getting away from him. Might be a little bit more likely to go with somebody like Brian Bello, or I am playing a little bit of Patrick Corbin on both sites. I do think it's a good night to spread out your exposure at pitcher. Yeah, he's I think $1,000 more expensive than the next cheapest pitcher on FanDuel. On DraftKings, I'll definitely be playing a lot of Kikuchi because it's just easier for him to land on the winning lineup when there's 2 pitching slots rather than 1. But I think if you're playing Kikuchi, I think you want to try to pair him with somebody different. And I think the chalk is probably going to be either Kikuchi and Bello, maybe Kikuchi and Assad, depending on how much money people are trying to spend on bats. I like the idea if you're playing Kikuchi, I like the idea of pairing him with somebody like Patrick Corbin for tournaments, because then you don't really have to worry about that Kikuchi ownership as much. But I think we're projecting him for about 50% ownership on DraftKings. I'll probably be under the field on that, but I'm still, maybe 35 or something like that. I'm not going to fully fade him or anything. He is, I think, by at least a strikeout, the best pitcher on the slate.
So we have small samples for a lot of these Angels. A lot of these Angels have been called up as the season's winding down. But it's funny, if you look at Plate IQ, there are 4 Angels, 4 of the 9 Angels. Again, they're super small samples. We'll talk about it. But 4 of the 9 Angels in the lineups today have a 0 ISO against lefties this year. It's just bonkers. Now, again, we're talking about like 6 at-bats, 12 at-bats, 2 at-bats. But it's still just kind of funny to see. And a little bit more contact heavy as well, 21.6% collectively. Carlucci in the season, 27.3% as far as Ks. That is really strong. Biggest strikeout arm on the slate is Carlucci. It's a drop-off, pretty significant. He's 27.5%, which is not a monster number, but is very clearly the biggest number. Suarez at 23.4%. Brandon Pfaadt, who got his face absolutely punched in last time out, 22.8%. Walker is the lowest. You mentioned Corbin at 18% as well. I do agree that like 50% might be conservative on DK for Carlucci. That might be a conservative number. I would not be surprised if it's even higher. And of course, like in the single entry, 3 entry stuff that I'm more interested in, going to be even higher. It's going to be like 75, 80, 85%, something silly. And I'm probably going to play him. Probably. I think so, because you can't just say, hey, I'm not playing him. You have to then play somebody else. And the somebody else's, we'll talk about it. And the pool's not great. I do like Bayo. You referenced Bayo. We have him at Assad at like similar ownership, 23, 22%. I think Bayo is going to separate a little bit. That's just sort of my opinion. I'm fine with Assad. And like you said, it's probably comes down to a salary thing. If you want an extra bat or two, then you get Assad. If you have the money, you take Bayo. This Tampa lineup, it's a great ballpark. It's a great lineup to pick on as far as strikeouts. Bayo's, he's a weird pitcher, man. I think he's better than his numbers say. Sierra suggests that as well. Awesome ground ball guy, like 51% ground balls in the season. Doesn't give up a lot of home runs. Just does a good job keeping the ball in the ballpark, and the ballpark jump to Tampa should help him as well. So I like Bayo. I'm a believer, still a believer. Assad, you mentioned, like the rest of these guys, Fetty, Pfaadt, Severino seems overpriced. I don't know if you're going to embrace that just because, like, maybe he's had a few spike games here and there. I don't know. One of them I think was against the Marlins. So he dropped like a complete game, but this is the Phillies. It's, you mentioned Corbin, who's just not going to get rostered 5%. They'll let him pitch. Like they let him go out there and eat innings, so he can go 6 or 7 in theory. I guess that's the thought process there. And he's cheap, and opportunity cost is not great.
Yeah, and he's been pitching better lately as he approaches free agency after 6 years getting torched every time he takes the mound for the Nationals. He's actually, had a pretty good, I think, 5 out of his last 6 starts. Been pretty decent. He did give up 7 runs in the 6th. But still, and that is like, it is a significant thing, right? Because when he's on, they let him go out and pitch, and he gets these games where he, 1 earned run allowed, 6 innings, 6, 7, 8 Ks. And that's all we need at 0 ownership, particularly on a smaller slate, if the other pitchers aren't doing as well. So I like the idea of being over the field on Corbin. If you think about it, what is it? DraftKings there, 5% projected ownership. You don't get the chance to be like 5 times the field on a starting pitcher that can, they can put up a big score. The fact that they'll just let him go, they'll let him go 100 pitches. That means he can put up a pretty decent score and at a pretty low price tag. And so you just don't get that opportunity that often in DraftKings baseball DFS.
Will you allow yourself to play 1 Cub against him? Is that something you're blocking? I'm not saying you're going to grab it, but like if it happens to pop up in your stuff, are you okay with that?
I usually just don't change that setting. But okay. I don't love the idea. I generally don't like doing that, even on smaller slates. Like at about 3 game slates, I start to say, well, you kind of have to. It just usually doesn't work out. Usually there's a better option. Like if the guy goes out and hits, say a Suzuki goes out and hits a home run or 2 home runs, you don't want Corbin. If he doesn't, you want another outfielder. So I don't like doing it, but in this case, I agree. I probably wouldn't go out of my way to like remove it.
Yeah, I agree with that as a general thought. And 3 games, maybe 4 games, that's where I'm going to cut it off. I just feel like, just because Corbin's cheap, and one of these Cubs probably takes him deep. Probably. It's just like he's probably not going to have a clean sheet. It's possible, but probably not. Mr. Richards telling us, yes, it is a sprint slate. Do love the sprint slates. You'll know pretty quickly if you're if you're in the mix or not in the mix. And then you can watch the football later on, which yourself and Chop will be talking about in about 2 hours on the Showdown Slate show. Other takes as far as pitchers, like if you're running, I guess we have 12 guys. We got 12 guys throwing baseballs. Theoretically, you're running 150 lineups. How many of these pitchers, if any, are we Xing out?
I have 11, 12 represented in my pitching
Can I guess?
pool.
Can I guess?
Sure. I'll be honest. I'm just kind of running some sample, like 100 sample lineup, but I'm getting 11 out of 12 guys. I will say it's single digits, like 1 or 2 of like Luis Ortiz and Taijuan Walker.
Okay, so you don't have Jose Flores.
No.
Okay, I was trying to figure out the one that didn't make the cut. That's what I was trying to figure out. Yeah. Okay. That's pretty much where I would be. But like, there's nothing that says that Taijuan Walker can't be okay tonight. He's probably not going to be great, but like, yeah. But these other guys like Fetty, and I don't know how to split the hairs here, and it doesn't sound like you and you don't really have to necessarily with like Littell and Fetty and Fought and Assad. Just get a decent amount, and hopefully you get the land on the right combination.
Yeah.
No significant stands.
I'll say I think I've soured on Fetty a little bit. So I think it was questionable whether O'Neal Cruz was going to be in the lineup, and he is. So I think that takes Fetty down a notch. Maybe a little bit like I'm, discussed that fact that I'm going to be playing some Patrick Corbin. Also maybe a little bit higher on like Severino. Higher on Severino and Corbin, maybe lower on Assad and Eric Fetty.
All right. Anything else in regards to pitching, or shall we just go ahead and pivot and talk about our stacks? Let's give the people clue number 2. It took us a while to get clue number 1. No winners on clue number 1, far as I can tell. It is not Carmelo Anthony or Denny McClain or Miguel Cabrera, but some fun names being thrown out there. Clue number 2. Maybe this will change things. Maybe it won't. Clue number 2 is average. Average is clue number 2. Get yourself a week free of RotoGrinders Premium if you do tell me what athlete we're talking about. By the way, if you want to go ahead and buy NFL Premium, you can buy NFL. Get your first month of NFL Premium for $15 off. You can also get yourself the 6-month combo sub. Commit to 6 months, and you get $250 off the top there, as opposed to going month by month by month. All the links for this stuff is in the description on the YouTube. Hey, did I officially say hello to YouTube? Say, what's up, YouTube? Hit that like button. Subscribe, and turn on those notifications. You turn on notifications so you know why we were not live at 5 o'clock. It's like, oh boy, why are they not? Well, because it's a short slate, and you guys didn't want to hear me yapping for an hour and 20 minutes, so we jumped on a little bit later, 5:15ish. Okay. Oh yeah, you can get yourself 3 days. Just 3 days is $19 and change. You do not want to fully commit, and $40 off if you want 1 month of RotoGrinders Premium. All right, let's go ahead and talk about our stacks tonight. 12 teams. Before we do so, Squirrel, our category for stacks was we're sticking with our theme we created last week. Somehow we're intertwining the Thursday night football game. So, chat, this is a tough one, chat, but just put on your thinking braids, your thinking caps. Tell me the best quarterback all time for the Patriots, New England Patriots. Best quarterback all time. And everybody's going to type Steve Grogan really, really fast, I'm sure. Yeah, that is what we power ranked. New England Patriot quarterbacks. Yeah, let's go ahead and open up that board. It is pretty straightforward, right? Score, like we answered this one, we knocked this out pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We did this one pretty quickly. I think it's pretty obvious. It's funny, I was looking up these names I'm looking at past showdown slates in my my Thursday Night Football article. Oh yeah, last year was like Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones. Then that makes a pretty good 4th and 5th for our Patriots QB board. Doug Flutie, I think, right in the middle. And then Drew Bledsoe, Tom Brady. It is about as straightforward as you can get.
Doug Flutie, back in the famous touchdown pass, you see it in one of those highlight reels against the University of Miami many years ago against Boston College. Famously had the I remember him in the NFL. Most probably should remember, but the drop kick extra point field goal. Do you remember this? That's what I think of him. Yeah. They were up like 40 or so, and like I think Belichick let him have some fun. I think it was Belichick. I'm pretty sure it was Belichick. But like apparently, and that was like when we all figured it out. We all learned that you can on an extra point, or is it maybe it was a field goal. You can like drop the ball and kick it. It was very strange, but it's like that's a thing you can do. I've never seen anybody do that before. And yeah, he had his own cereal. He was big in New England, Flutie Flakes, which I imagine was just Frosted Flakes with a different, cover. And Bailey Zappi probably doesn't deserve to be there, but it's a fun name to say. So there's probably somebody that deserves it a little bit more. I'm not sure. But
I just like ranking him over Mac Jones.
Yeah. Well, Mac Jones, we're punishing him for his hype, I suppose, right? He was also bad, but yeah. I mean, I guess there's a chance he could still. Where is Mac Jones now? Do we know team he's on? He's got to be backing up somewhere.
I think Jacksonville. You know what? I had a Mac Jones Rainmaker, so I'm happy putting him right there.
R.I.P. Rainmakers. Yeah, Tony Eason. That's a good name. A good random one to get thrown out there. I think Tony Eason was in the famous. Wasn't Tony Eason in the Marino draft with Elway? I think he was. Like the famous '84 draft, where it was Elway, Marino, Ken O'Brien.
Marino was like not 82. Marino was earlier than that.
I think Marino was 84. I'm pretty sure. Not sure. We can Google. Somebody let us know in chat who's right here. One time I want to be right against Squirrel. I think I'm correct here. But I think, it was like a famous draft where it had Elway, Ken O'Brien, who didn't get there, Eason, and Marino at a Pittsburgh.
Both kind of right. You're right that it was the right. It was the Elway, Todd Blackledge, Jim Kelly, Tony Eason, Kenny O'Brien. It was 83 though, not 82.
Oh, we middled it.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it might have been 1984 Topps cards, and that's what's in my brain. It was an 84 Topps card, but like they have the previous year, which is 83. So that's why I goofed. All right. Let's go ahead and power rank our teams today. Again, we have all the lineups, which is beautiful. Very first game, 6:50 is the first pitch for Zach Littell taking on Brian Bayo. We have Vegas throwing up their hands here, right? They're saying we don't know who's going to win this game. Both teams here are minus 110. The Rays did bench like some of their better. Well, Morel, I want to say he's one of their better players, but he's been a disaster since coming over to Tampa. It's been rough. I still like him going forward, but he misses a lot of baseballs too. Where do we have Boston and Tampa on the board?
So, I am going to go ahead and just start things off with a bang by putting Tampa in Mac Jones. Of course, that we like Bayo, probably as a pitching option, like a much more so than, than playing the Tampa Bay offense. It's been one of the worst offenses, I think, for a while now. I think they're second to the White Sox in most offensive categories, or right around those parts. Rays in Mac Jones. Boston, I'll go ahead and put Boston and Drew Bledsoe appropriately. I guess they are appropriate with any of these selections, but I'll go with Drew Bledsoe.
That works. By the way, we got a winner in the Discord channel, by the way, taking down the we'll go ahead and play out the string as far as the clues. I thought we'd get a little deeper in this game, but I believe this is a repeat winner. Blink 182 once again took this down. Very good at this game. Very good at Fleet Thursday. Shout out to you. I believe producer Steve, producer Devin have already hooked you up with a week free, or in the process of hooking you up with a week free. But let's just go ahead and play out the string for fun. Clue number 3 is dozen. So there you go. Tony, average, and dozen. Those are your clues for Fleet Thursday. The Pirates, the Cards, 8.5 is the total. Luis Ortiz taking on Eric Fetty. Like you said, O'Neal Cruz is back for Pittsburgh in the lineup. Where do we have the Pirates and the Cardinals on the board?
We got to get the Rays and Red Sox up there.
Oh, you know what? Oh, so you had the Mac Jones was the Rays, right? And you had Boston and Drew Bledsoe. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm kind of going back and forth between Flutie and Bledsoe. I think there's going to be a bunch of teams I like more than the Red Sox. It's not a good hit, not a good hitting park, right? I do like to throw a road team. I'd put them in between if I could. I might knock them down to Flutie.
All right. You said Mike, so let's leave that to producer Steve. Let's see. Okay. We'll let him break the tie. he's got his cursor on it. He's thinking about it. It looks like he's staying in Bledsoe, as far as I can tell. But we're keeping Tampa in Mac Jones for sure. Steve was probably hooking up Blink 182 with some premium, a little bit of multitasking there. All right, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, what do you got?
So let's see, St. Louis. We're facing Luis Ortiz here. I'm probably got like a 4-6 implied run total. I'm gonna put him up in Bledsoe with the Red Sox. Pirates, I'll put it in Doug Flutie. I don't hate them. They got O'Neal Cruz back. So that they're the road team. I always like playing the road team. They've got some kind of like surprising speed and power. It might just all be O'Neal Cruz, but regardless, I'll put him in Flutie.
Yeah, I assume like Cruz is healthy if he's playing, right? Like, why wouldn't he play? If he's playing, I'm assuming he can still bases. I'm just trying to think of that thought process because why else would he be out there? Their season's over, so I'm guessing he can do all the things he can do. I like just as a play in general. I'm just sort of thinking about him out loud. Is like I assume he's just like the standard player. There's no other reason why. If he was in any way injured, I don't think he would be playing. Just kind of the way I'm saying that, sort of thinking out loud on that. Okay, let's move on. That's 2 games down, 4 games to go. Crunch time's coming in about 15 minutes or so. Derek Carty and Dave Potts. Cheeseisgood. Is that correct? Is my math good? It's all 15 minutes? Is that right? I think so. All right. Oh, 25 minutes. 25 minutes? 25. Oh, boy. Well, we're going to have time for questions from chat. This is going to be fun. Get gone through all. Feel free to talk about every single player on all these teams as we segue to Arizona taking on the Brewers. 8 total. Arizona is a slight favorite here, -120. Brandon Pfaadt, Tobias Myers. Trying to see if there's anything goofy, anything different. No Hoskins for Milwaukee, right? We talked about there's no Willie Adames is also not playing baseball tonight for Milwaukee. They did clinch last night. Not a full nonsense. Contreras is out there. So most of the regulars are out there. Corbin Carroll, who it's like a season-long conversation, but what a disaster he was the first couple of months of the season. And he's been electric, like spectacular in the last 2 months of the season. Like there was speculation of him being injured. I assume he's fine now. And he's been excellent leading off there on the road, well-positioned for 5 ABs. Where do you have the D-backs and the Brewers?
All right. So I think Brewers is pretty straightforward. I'll put them in Bailey's app. They literally are hungover. Their team nickname is the Brewers. Yes. So, I don't know. I guess we had to say something extended, for each team. But yeah, Adames and Hoskins are out of the lineup. I like playing Brandon Pfaadt more so than the Brewers. Just wouldn't be shocked. I mean, if you play the Brewers and they get shut out, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I should have known. So they've got a 3.9 implied run total. That's lower than the Pirates and the Nationals, or right around the same area as the Nationals tonight. So yeah, I'll put them in it down in Bailey's app, and then Arizona, I'm going to put up in Tom Brady. I like them. They're facing Tobias Myers. He can give up some home runs. Arizona has some power. They've got good left-handed hitters. They're the road team. Like Myers is good enough that people aren't going to want to pick on him, but he's not so good that he can't give up the most runs on the slate. So yeah, I'll put the Diamondbacks up in Tom Brady because I don't think they're going to see as much ownership as maybe some of the other offenses. Like I think Cubs and Houston might be a little bit higher owned. So yeah, Diamondbacks up in Brady.
Yeah, we've talked about this before about Arizona being scoring the most runs in all of baseball by a significant margin, which is kind of snuck up on me. It was kind of surprising when I looked at that. It's like, oh, wow, that is, it's like 70 or so, depending on how it's gone the last few days. It does matter how you're getting those runs. You want homers as opposed to walks and singles. Sure. Like sometimes getting 5 runs is better than a stack getting 8 runs, depending on how those runs are created. How compact it is. If it's just a couple guys and if they're homers, that kind of thing does matter. I like Arizona as well. I do like that call. And you, just like myself, and just like everybody should be, we are suckers for the road team. Gotta love the road team. Locked in for you never know what kind of goofiness is going to happen. J3 is telling us to smash the like for producer Steve. Yeah, let's smash that like button. Only 5 likes. That can't be correct, right? That has to be an old comment, Steve. Only 5, I'm like walking off the show. 5 is like, that's I'm not a big ego guy, but like that would be 5 is just like, oh man. Well, I know it's the last month of the season. It's like only like 10 days left or whatever it is. We're sputtering to the finish line. Okay, we're at 44 now. A little bit. I'm going to stay on the show. I'm going to stay on the show. We're at 44. Can we can increase that? That'd be great if you guys hit it again. All right. And yeah, turn on notifications, do all that stuff. We do appreciate that. 3 more games, and get your questions ready too. We're gonna have time for questions. Philadelphia and the Mets. Well, this is a revenge game for Taiwan Walker, right? Didn't he pitch for the Nets? The Mets. I think he was like he wasn't very good for them, but I'm pretty sure he wore that uniform. Severino on the other side, 8 total. That is noted Met fan producer Steve, not a fan of Taiwan Walker, and so many home runs he's given up on the season. Again, this ballpark is a little bit more forgiving than the home ballpark there for Walker, but so many fly balls. The biggest barrel percent on this slate by far, 13% barrel rate for Walker. The lowest K rate, 15.7%, an 8.9% walk rate, which is kind of on the fringe. 2.29 homers again, which is absolutely egregious. Steve's just having a good time. I'm not trying to lead the witness here or anything, but I think the Mets, and I don't think they're going to be that popular. I think you're supposed to play more Mets than the field. You tell me, Mets, Phillies.
No, I do. I like the Mets. Going back and forth. There's a lot of teams like kind of right in between Bledsoe and Flutie for me. I'll go ahead and put the Mets in Bledsoe. Kind of wish the Red Sox weren't there. Again, I like the Mets like more than the Red Sox, I think.
You can move them down.
Yeah. And then Mets, facing Taiwan Walker. I think you were saying some of the numbers earlier that just not good. It is a revenge game. Got to take that into account. But a pretty severe ballpark downgrade for the Phillies hitters as well. Going from so what is it? Citizens in Philadelphia up to Citi Field.
I think so.
Yeah. And then let's see. Phillies, I'd put in Bailey Zappi.
Phillies and Bailey Zappi. Yeah, you can always play Schwarber. In our chat, I don't know if we Michael's telling us Schwarber bomb. Jardog saying Alvarez bomb. I don't think our chatters are from the future. They're just predicting, I suppose, who's going to be hitting homers. But certainly those are 2 good candidates to go yard today. But yeah, I don't really love Philly overall. They're fine, but and you can just play minis. I think you can just play minis in Philadelphia as well. You don't necessarily have to get yourself a full stack. And then there's the Pete Alonso bomb as well. He kind of scuffled out the gate to start the season, but I think he's got 34 homers now at this point. He's starting to bang some out. 2 more games to go. It's Washington, your Nats taking on the Cubbies. 8.5 is the total. We have Patrick Corbin for Washington taking on Javier Assad. Assad's a pretty big favorite, minus 175. Team total for Chicago, one of the bigger ones on the board at 4.8. The Nats are below 4 at 3.7, but still some viable bats there. Well, that's Dusty's kid in there, right? Darren Baker. It's kind of cool to see. Everybody remembers when he was a bat boy many, many years ago. All right, Washington and Chicago. What do you got?
I'm gonna end up messing up my my nice sideways curve here.
You're playing Tetris.
Yeah, my distribution. So I'm gonna put the Cubs up in Drew Bledsoe, but I might end up under the field. I think they're going to be one of the highest owned teams tonight, and probably top 2. I like the Diamondbacks much more than the Cubs. The Cubs at home. I think Patrick Corbin's just been pitching better lately. I'll keep the Cubs up in Bledsoe, but I am going to put the Nationals up in Bledsoe as well. Call me a homer. I don't think there's anything scary about Javier Assad. Nationals lead the league in stolen bases, which you don't really think of, right? I think they pretty sure they actually lead Cincinnati in stolen bases. And something it doesn't really count for runs, but it counts for our fantasy scores. And they're brought up all the good young hitters. You'd kind of expect this team to be getting a little bit better as the end of the season draws close. They've got James Wood up there now. They've got Dylan Cruz. CJ Abrams is back. He was injured for a bit. So I like the Nat, and also they don't have Joey Gallo in the lineup tonight. So maybe
is that good or bad? It's probably good, I guess.
Yeah, I think it takes a strikeout or a couple of strikeouts away from Assad and maybe adds the possibility of turning over the lineup a little bit more for the Nationals if they are doing well. So, this is ownership considered, but I'm going to put the Cubs and Nationals both up in Drew Bledsoe.
I like that call. I'm with you on Washington, especially that front half like you're talking about. The future is it's getting brighter for Washington. I'm not going to say it's bright just yet, but definitely getting brighter. Definitely there's some players you can point to and say, yeah, this is exciting. Things are turning around for the Nationals. Okay, one game left. By the way, let's go ahead and give out another clue. Again, this was already guessed. Shout out to Blink-182. Fleet Thursday. Tony, average, dozen, predict. Predict is the fourth clue. Tony, average, dozen, predict. I don't know if anybody's guessed it in the YouTube. So you can jump over to the Discord and you can see the answer. What's the fun of that? If you want to just play the home version and get your reps in. Angels, Astros, no Altuve today for Houston. Still a 5 total for the Astros, taking on Jose Suarez. The lefty, despite that, certainly you can roster yourself some Jordan Alvarez. You can roster yourself some Kyle Tucker. By the way, Houston, minus 275. Monster favorite. Biggest favorite on the board with Kikuchi, most popular pitcher as well. Where do we have the Astros and the Angels? Are you going to make the leverage argument? You can make it. It's there if you want it. You tell me.
So I do. Well, I leverage on the Angels now. I'm putting them in Mac Jones. I was trying to figure out where you were going there. No.
Yeah.
There is some leverage to the Angels. So if you're doing 150 lineups, I think there's an argument to have some of every team represented. I'd probably rather play the Angels than the Rays. Having said that, I'm putting the Angels in Mac Jones. They're probably, the second to last for me on this slate. And then, I guess they are the road team. So, definitely ahead of the Rays. But I'd still probably rather play the Brewers and the Phillies than the Angels. Like you were referencing half their lineup having like a 0 ISO. I forget what the percentage was, but
it's a small sample, but it's wild to see. It is wild to see. Yeah.
And then Astros, I don't like. I think they are going to get some ownership, but they probably should. And so, they're facing Jose Suarez. I'm thinking that that's going to potentially lead to a little bit less ownership on Jordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker than there should be. Because I think they're two of the best hitters on the slate. Maybe it won't, and I'm just going to be playing good chalky hitters at high ownership, but I think that's okay. I'm going to put the Astros up in Tom Brady. I don't like them as much as the Diamondbacks, ownership considered, but they're still up there.
Some questions loading up in chat. Feel free to fire off more questions. The final board is Tom Brady has Arizona and Houston. Drew Bledsoe is the most popular category here, the most popular tier with, St. Louis, the Mets, the Cubs, and Washington. Right in the middle, Doug Flutie has Pittsburgh and Boston, Bailey Zappi, Milwaukee and Philly, and then all at the bottom, all by themselves, is Mac Jones. Oh, the Angels, you put in Bailey Zappi, is that correct?
No, I put him down to Mac Jones.
Oh, you did put him in Mac Jones. Okay, all right. I know you said you liked him better than Tampa, but just not enough. Yeah, not enough to get up to Zappi. I think I need some water. All right, some questions in chat. Jardog wants to know who's going to homer. I don't know if you have any squirrel homers for the people today, but specifically to Carroll versus Schwarber, do you have a home run lean amongst those two if you're going to pick one?
I'd always go Schwarber. I'll go Schwarber.
Do you dabble much in the home run props? Is that something you like to bet with? You talk about betting, hedging for your DFS lineups, which I love. I love that you do that. It's very, very smart, very sharp. But is that something you is that one of the streets you venture in on occasion?
Not really. I don't know necessarily what the edge is. So all these home run picks I give out every show, I don't really bet them. I generally am going more for like guys we wouldn't necessarily think of for our DFS lineups that I think are in a good spot. And I'd use that as like a proxy for what I think the odds are probably better than people think. So between Carroll and Schwarber, I'd go Schwarber. If I'm giving out a couple of home run picks, I would say Eugenio Suarez, and I will go. I'm going to go with Met. I'll go with JD Martinez.
I was gonna say Jesse Winker, but yeah, I would have definitely gone to the Mets as well. T from LOC saying, "Is it Mac and me?" Are you guessing the Fleet? This is not Movie Monday. This is Fleet Thursday. So I'm not sure. We're thinking of an athlete. Mac and Me was a movie from the '80s. It's not Mac and I don't know if you're doing a pun with Mac Jones or not. I'm not sure what's going on, but we have nothing Mac and Me related. Mr. Richard, DK, single entry, the stack to win all the cash. Single entry tournaments. What is the stack to win all the cash tonight, Squirrel?
I'm going to go Diamondbacks, but I'm tempted to say Nationals. A single entry, I'd go Diamondbacks.
John wants to know, well, speaking of the Diamondbacks, would you play any Arizona in cash? I ran some optimals. I always run some optimals. I add a little bit of juice, but not a ton. But I think it's mostly, let me just confirm. I'm buying time because I don't think you have a cash answer. If you want to give an answer, by all means. But I know this is not your lane per se.
So actually, it depends whether you're talking FanDuel or DraftKings. Looking at it, there's not a ton of Diamondbacks, I think, in cash on DraftKings. Maybe the catcher Moreno is only like 2,900. On FanDuel, they're much more affordable. Probably Christian Walker's only 3,600. Kettle Marte is like 3,900. Jock Peterson like 3,100. I think those guys are cash viable.
So yeah, on DraftKings, it's I'm seeing a lot of Cubs, some Astros, and some Mets mostly is what I'm seeing as far as the optimal stuff. Which it checks out. It makes sense as far as their team total. Let's just go ahead. We'll go ahead and drop the fifth clue for the people. Again, just playing out the string. Fifth clue today for Fleet Thursday. Tony, average, dozen, predict, and kiss. Kiss is the last one. I'll explain the clues as well. Not that Blink-182 needs an explanation because Blink-182 nailed it on the second guess, which I guess I thought I didn't know if it was right on the nose, but I kind of goofed there. Maybe I made it too easy, but it's probably tricky for most until now. Until now, maybe it's starting to all come together. They're asking about extremes as far as umpires. I think there was one. I'm fairly certain it was the Tampa-Boston game. I want to say it's an extreme hitters umpire. Let me just confirm that. There's one extreme umpire. It's an extreme hitters umpire. That is for Zach Littell and Brian Bayo. Cam the Man. Bayo, Kikuchi plus Mets. Is that different enough for single entry? Are the Mets, so different enough for as far as pitching? No. Are the Mets different enough? That's the pivot off the pivot, right? I think. What do you think, Squirrel?
I like the Mets. It's single entry. Like large field, you might be eating a little bit too much ownership there. Single entry, I think you're going to see a lot of like Houston and Cubs. So I think you can do a Mets stack. Try to get like a little bit different, maybe with like your secondary stack or one-off hitters or whatever. I think you can do that.
Do you do anything specific as far as lineup stuff? Like, are you forcing 5-2s, 5-3s, 4-4s? Is that do you have like a general rule? And does that change on a slate with only 6 games? And how does that change, as far as your general way of attack? What is it tonight?
So I predominantly do 5-2s. I try to get in some 5-3s, but I try to do less of those than 5-2s. And then sometimes I do like 5 and I'll allow like 5 and 3 one-offs. I like 5-2s because I think you always want to be stacking 5 on DraftKings. Like this is just the right answer. You always want to be stacking. Like some team's going to go nuts, and when they go nuts, they're going to be scoring a bunch of runs. They're going to be turning the lineup over. And so stacks don't always. Our stacks aren't always the optimal answer, but they're often the winning answer, like more than anything else, like 5-man stacks. And then it's just a question of I like having the secondary correlation, but I don't want to like when you force in a 5-3, then optimizers can end up doing weird stuff, because they have to stick in a third stack of exactly 3 hitters, and so you end up hurting your projection sometimes a lot more than you intend to, especially if you say I want a maximum of 10% of each 3-man stack or something. like sometimes they get to that 10th team, it's just a wacky thing they've got to, that the math has to do to get a 5-3 stack, and you end up with a much lower projected lineup than if you would just done 5-2 and let yourself get up to like a really good hitter. So like that one off in the 5-2 stack like almost acts like a mathematical release valve to like just let you get up to a well projected lineup.
I like that. That's a good answer. Michael in chat says FanDuel stacks don't matter. What? Well, I mean, correlation, the way the points work, where the scoring works, it probably matters more as far as stacks on FanDuel. And I was going to ask, do you lock in 4? Do you lock in 4 and then figure out 3, 2-2, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, I do like 4 threes with a lot of the same thought process. It actually on FanDuel, if you do, I think a 4-4, you can't use a pitcher from one of the
pitcher.
Games. So depending on, like if sometimes you see this, like they'll have like Chris Sale in Atlanta is facing like a mediocre pitcher, and Sale's like a minus 250 favorite or whatever, and he might get 12 strikeouts. But Atlanta is also the highest projected team on the board, so you can't like pair a 4-4 with Atlanta and Sale. So I like doing a 4-3
with Houston.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with like Kikuchi. So I like doing a 4-3 like at the most, and then but I can be talking. Sometimes I'll be sitting around just like I'll have the lineups and I'll be like kind of fiddling around, and be like, you know what, I can get like a much better projected lineup, but it's going to end up being a 3-2-2 or whatever. Again, that's fine. Like that's like there's still some correlation there, and if it it gets you up to like a lineup with more upside, I don't think you have to like necessarily stick in a 4-3 or whatever. And same thing on draft. I don't think you have to do like a 5-man stack, but there should be some thought process behind it if you're not.
You have your lineups out there, and we're up 2 hours into the Slater, so like one of your 5-man stacks in the early games is going nuts. In that same lineup, you have a 3-man stack at like late games. Maybe it's Angels. Maybe they're not great, but like the way you built the lineup, the way it kind of spit out, like it is what it is. Do you ever say like, oh my God, this lineup right now is well positioned, it's got a really good shot, and you kind of go through it and it's like, oh, wait a second, now it's got 3 terrible Angels that were just sort of like contrarian, and change the lineup. You know what I'm saying? It's like kind of baby your lineups through the slate and adjust because, well, this lineup is smashing. Maybe I should just say, come catch me, because I'm going to put actually good players in this lineup. Do you understand my question? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I do. Like I'll be going down the DraftKings list of like my lineups, right? And if I see something that's like everything else is red, but this lineup's like green or yellow, right? Like it's got more player innings left. I'll click on the lineup, like, oh, what do I got going in this? And sometimes it's like, oh, I forced in like a maximum of 10% of like the secondary stacks. And it's a bad stack. I'll be sitting there going, I should change this. I will say I absolutely cost myself 6 figures doing that. But I can think of one particular time, like the FanDuel monster. I had some low owned stack in the early game just went berserk. I was like, oh, you're gonna need this stack to win.
Yeah. And
I've got like a terrible stack paired up with them. And I'm going to change it to like the Coors Field stack. And I just forced in a shutout to Coors Field. Like I don't know how I did it. Like, those teams couldn't score a run. And so like I know like specifically, and then like of course like the low owned team or whatever, there was the secondary stack went off as well. But I feel like that was like one time that maybe the exception that broke the rule. And I do think the right answer is you should, if you've got like a low owned stack that's gone off, and you've got like a low owned stack that's like in a bad spot, like it's lower owned for a reason in the night game, I think you should try to change it to be chalkier. I think that's the right answer.
Yeah, that's what I think too. But like, yeah, it's results based thinking sometimes, or small sample stuff where like you only remember like the photo finishes you lose, right? Of course, you remember those. So yeah, I remember that time where I goofed. But yeah, I did it on Yahoo this past weekend where I was $1 short of Marvin Harrison. I was so bummed. And I think I ended up with like McLaughlin or something like that on Denver. And I pivot off of Yoshi. And I wouldn't have got there. Like I had a really good, like a live lineup at one point, but it cost me because I had to know Yoshi was going to catch 2 balls for 2 touchdowns. The tattoo was in there. That's just how that goes sometimes. But I think you're supposed to do that if you have the ability to do that. The chat is clamoring for the dongs, by the way. We will have to give some out. I'll go ahead and put them in chat as we segue to Crunch Time. Crunch Time not here just yet. They'll be here shortly. Just a few minutes away. You got the Luch holding it down. Dave Potts, Cheeseisgood, of course, Carty. Carty is joining the show as well. I saw some football questions there. Of course, I don't know how, if you're fully locked in for football, if you can answer a question or two as far as football, because you have the show later on tonight. Are you good to go football-wise?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually like much more prepared for football than I normally am at this point in lineup creation. So.
I should go ahead and I told the people I was going to answer how we got to our Athlete Thursday. So clue number 1 is Tony. And I'm not just going to tell you the guy's name right out the gate, but so a Tony is an award won by people that act on Broadway. 2, average. Of course, if you've seen Dodgeball, this might have gave it away. Average Joe's Jim. You've heard this the saying. He's just an average Joe. Dozen refers to this person's number 12. Predict. Famously, this person made a bold prediction. They may or may not have been liquored up when they did it on TV, but it turned out to work out. They won the Super Bowl. They won Super Bowl III, despite being like 13-point underdogs, whatever it was. I believe my dad was at that game. He told me that once, unless he was just making it up. And clue number 5, I guess this is a theme. He was liquored up on a game for the Jets on the sideline, and he tried to make out with the sideline reporter, Susie Colbert, many years later in his life. This, of course, is Joe Namath. I was tying in the other half of the football game this evening. Well, you know what, Squirrel? We're going to go ahead and we got to keep your football takes on layaway, because knocking on the door is crunch time. Of course, you're going to give the people all your football takes in about an hour and 25 minutes later on, all the way up the lock with a head chopper. But without further ado, we got Derek Carty, we have Dave Potts, and we have Justin Carlucci. Let's bring on crunch time. Luch, I don't think is there any weather related? You have weather, right? You have the no weather takes for you. You don't need to borrow my magic 8-ball or nothing. I think we're pretty clean weather-wise.
Thankfully, it's been a pretty quiet forecast for weather, and thank God for that, because I don't want to play Kevin Roth tonight. So, good news.
It's great when it goes well, but when it doesn't, when you look, his mentions are fun to look at from afar, but it's a tough night for Roth. Of course, it goes well basically all the time. Carty, Dave, how we doing?
Doing pretty well. We got another couple weeks of baseball, which is nice, and football season's been off to a great start too. So yeah, things are good.
Yeah,
I was just thinking, I don't think I've seen Luch all year, so this is an exciting surprise.
Oh yeah, you know what? I'm not here for a long time, just a good time, and maybe we'll talk some ice cream at the end and have some shenanigans, because it's been quite some time for sure.
Well, you guys talk plenty of ice cream on your Food for Thought podcast, yourself and Will, Chief, on Mondays, among other things. But I assume ice cream comes up in the food section of the Food for Thought football podcast. I don't know if that's
we'll be waiting for any one of you to make an appearance this year. The door is always open. Dean was on last year, and we went well off the rails, as you could probably imagine.
Who could have predicted that?
A Monday football podcast. What could go wrong, right?
Myself and Squirrel, we're going to see ourselves out. We'll let the crunch time do their thing. I will go ahead, put Dean's Dongs in the YouTube. We have some bold predictions for some homers tonight. Spoiler, it's probably going to be Mets. We shall see. Myself and Squirrel, we do appreciate y'all watching. Hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications. Do not go anywhere, because we have crunch time for the next 33 minutes. Producer Steve is having himself a good time. Luch, take it away.
That graphic gets me every time. That's just solid work right there. What's up, gentlemen? Mr. Potts, Mr. Carty. It's great to see you. What's going on, guys?
Good to see you too. How you been?
Yeah. Pretty good. Can't complain. Busy. Scores and odds stuff over there. We just get so much volume on betting picks. It's off to a great football season. I know you dumped in a bunch of picks this morning, so really good to see you hitting the carries props, right? Big on that market this week?
Yeah, I got a couple of them in there. I think a few receptions ones. I think I probably have about a dozen of them up there right now. So been a good first 2 weeks. Hopefully this week is another profitable one.
And Mr. Cheese, for those listening, I don't know if we're doing an internal RotoGrinders sports betting championship. Looks like you're having a first good couple of weeks on the NFL streets, Mr. Cheese.
I like, how bad do the rest of you have to be for me to be in first place?
Well,
It's like so far, it's almost like I know what I'm doing, which is an absolute mirage, but I'll take it for less.
whatever the secret sauce is, keep it going and get your questions here in the live stream Discord, in the YouTube chat. And it's been a while since I've hosted here, so I apologize if I am a little out of sync or out of order, but I promise you I will do my best. One thing I know I have to do is these quick reads. So real quick, NFL Premium is on sale. Get your first month of NFL Premium for $15 off. You can also get yourself a 6-month combo subscription at the exclusive price of $469.99, which is a $250 savings instead of buying 6 individual months of combo premium. If you're not a fan of commitment, you can get the month of RG combo premium for $120 to give it a shot for a month. Those who want a test run before buying can dip their toes in the water with our 3-day pass at $19.99. Check the links in the description for more info. One more plug here real quick. SimLabs, the expert DFS lineup generation tool from RotoGrinders and Fantasy Labs, known as SimLabs, just got even better. In addition to the desktop tool on web, you can now download SimLabs on mobile from the App Store and use the power of DFS simulations in the palm of your hand. Available to combo and single sport subscribers, or you can buy it a la carte at the App Store. Check it out today. The fact that you can get simulations from RotoGrinders on mobile is the game changer. So check it out. Anyway, where do we start? Do we talk some pitchers? We have a fairly manageable slate compared to some of these just massive 12-game slates we had the past couple of days. So do we want to start with pitching? Is that still protocol here, fellas?
Yep.
All right. Carty, I'll throw it over to you first. Who's looking chalky and kind of what's the lay of the land here tonight?
If Steve's producing tonight, if he could just put a GIF of a guy vomiting violently, that would be kind of what I want to say pitching is like, because it's really, really bad. The top guy is going to be Yusei Kikuchi. On the Astros now, there we go, Steve. They've made some tweaks. He's improved his stuff a little bit. He's a very good pitcher facing the Angels, so the matchup's pretty good. He's almost 10K, so that's a lot, but it's a slate where things fall off very, very quickly. After him, it's probably a tier of 6 or 7 guys. You can definitely play the ownership game on them in tournaments, but it kind of looks like the ownership's going to be spread out even, so I don't even see a whole lot of edge you can get there. Eric Fetty's probably my favorite to pair with Kikuchi for cash games, in part because he's one of the cheaper ones. 7.6K. He's against the Pirates. And things don't get a whole lot better from there. Brian Bello has a good matchup against Tampa Bay, but he's over 8K. Bott's matchup isn't great against Milwaukee. You can take shots on Zach Littell, on Javier Assad, but really, it's kind of just none of them are really, really that good.
Yeah, Cheese. Mr. Bello got that big deal from the Red Sox before the season. Has been pretty underwhelming, but I mean, you want to talk about vomit gifts. There's a lot of strikeouts in that Tampa Bay lineup, especially since the trade deadline. What are your thoughts on pitching?
Yeah, pretty similar. I mean, the thing I'll say about Kikuchi, he's obviously the best guy, but it's when you get a small slate and there's just obviously the best guy, it's still Yusei Kikuchi. So on some 6-game slates, when you have someone who's obviously the best guy, sometimes I'll be 90% on him or even 95. Kikuchi is not a 90% pitcher. He's the best pitcher on this slate, and I will be at or maybe even above the field. We're showing 50-ish% ownership. I'm at 60. I can't go any higher than that on Kikuchi chalk. And kind of like Carty said, what's interesting is it appears that everything after him is just totally split up. The next 6 or 7 guys are all probably 15 to 20% owned. And I do think Fetty and Bello are just enough ahead of the others that if that ownership is true, I would rather just be over on those two and say, I think they'll be a little more popular than we're showing. I think we'll see probably more 30% on those two and 15 on all the others, but that's still not a huge gap. I have like 0 Severino, 0 Tobias Myers, and like 1 or 2 lineups with Brandon Pfat, just because Milwaukee has a little bit of a watered down lineup. But essentially, if I'm not playing Fetty or Bayo as SB2, I would just rather save money rather than play those other just kind of mediocre pitchers in tougher matchups. So I have more Zach Little and Javier Assad than those guys, but you're hoping they just don't blow up your lineup. And I don't think they will. Like, they're decent enough matchups and or pitchers and or ballparks that like you probably get your 12 points and maybe you get lucky and get your 17. But even if you get like 8 points, I think it's fine. So the real answer here is mostly play Kikuchi and then just throw random darts at the rest of your pitchers. And when you get to the offense, like if you're doing like 5 Astro stacks, like use 5 different SP2s. Like don't just go all in on one of these jokers. Like that's how you want to spread it out.
10.8 just seems god awful to spend for Kikuchi on. Like I just don't.
Yeah.
There's no universe where I want to spend 10.8 on.
It's
Kikuchi.
weird, but you're also not really spending much on bat. Like you hardly need the salary, except unless you're doing the obvious chalky Houston with Cubs stack, which you don't really need to do to have the same lineups as everyone. So yeah, it's like a lot of money, but you kind of just have money sitting around.
Yeah. It's just kind of a gross, weird click, but I mean, it's kind of a gross, weird slate. So I totally get it. We're in September here, and I'll just kind of ask you guys this quick. Do your thoughts change on stacks, like on smaller slates where kind of the gloves come off and I guess you might have less rules than you usually do? Are you always hardcore 5-man stack on DK, 4 on FanDuel, or since, there's a lot lower of implied run totals, the weather's cooling off and there's smaller slates, how do you guys attack tonight's slate in terms of like, are you doing anything a little out of the ordinary than you typically would over the summer?
For me, that's no. Like I hear this a lot, like when all the run totals are down, like you don't need to stack as much. Personally, to me, it's the opposite. Because if there's not a lot of scoring, the value of just a run or an RBI goes up. When you have a slate with a ton of scoring, you need a ton of scoring. And like a guy going 2 for 4 with 2 singles and 2 RBIs doesn't help you even in a stack. But if there's not a lot of scoring, 2 for 4 with a couple RBIs helps a lot. So that's my view on it. And I am stacking on this slate.
Cool. All right, let's just get moving along here. Drop those questions in. We will get to them toward the end of the show. Do we want to hit catcher for DraftKings? Carty, I'm curious to hear your take here. What are you looking at tonight at catcher?
We normally do stacks first.
Okay, well, then I had a great segue and I blew it. Great segue and I blew it. I didn't even know that.
You said you weren't familiar with the format. I figure, I'll just kind of keep us on track.
It's been a while. I'm like the MJ wearing the Wizards jersey. They just kind of brought me out. Doing some cardio. Okay, so I'll keep it there. Stacks, Carty. What are your thoughts? And give me something off the wall you're looking at too.
Yeah, so the top stacks, the Cubs, they're against Patrick Corbin. They're very reasonably priced. They're also going to be the chalkiest. You can play them, but do it in an intelligent way. After that, nothing. It's kind of like pitching where a lot of stuff just kind of looks similar projection-wise, similar ownership-wise. I'd say my next favorites are probably like Houston, Washington, maybe Pittsburgh against Fetty. I think Fetty will probably be the second highest owned pitcher on this slate. But it's the kind of slate where like you really can stack anybody except for maybe a couple of teams. I wouldn't even say it's outrageous to stack Angels against Kikuchi.
Go ahead, Chiefs. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel the same. Like when there's no ace pitchers, like you can stack everybody. I think I have all 12 teams in my first 20 lineups. I said in the musings I would have 11 of them and maybe not the Angels. I think I got to the Angels right around lineup 20, or at least a mini stack with Ward, Neto, and Ohapi. I think the Cubs. I agree on that. Like the Cubs, especially the righty power bats, but essentially everybody. That's the top team. Mets are next for me, but like it's all very jumbled, and I am absolutely playing everybody.
Okay. So now let's move on to catcher. If I got that right, Carty. Let's dive in.
Tell him no. Like say he's missing something.
What am I missing?
You're not missing anything. It's just catcher is catcher. Catcher's bad. You have Yainer Diaz in the Houston stack that I like. I think just pure value, kind of cash game perspective, Victor Caratini for 2.3K on DraftKings is the move because everyone at catcher is pretty bad tonight. You know, prices on Alvarez and Jansen are fine. I do like Ohapi a lot in tournaments because Kikuchi will be so owned and catcher is so bad and he has power. That's catcher for me.
How about catcher for Cheese?
Yeah, we've had a lot of slates this year where catcher has been kind of amazing. Like it's been a better position this year in general. But yeah, this slate is not it. So we're much more back to the just play the catch in your stack kind of slate. I'm fine punting all the way to Caratini if that's the thing you need to make your lineups work. Other than that, like I'm not seeking out a one-off at catcher. It's just a dude in the stack.
I saw our buddy Grant Neefer wrote up Ohapi at 6-1 to hit a homer today. I got like that call earlier. I tailed that one. So good to hear some positive Ohapi perspective here. Moving on to first base, I'll stick right here with you, Cheese. I'm looking at lineup HQ, and you got a blue blip next to the polar bear, Big Pete. So talk to me about Alonso and the rest of first base.
Yeah, first base has several guys that are worth spending up on, whether in stacks or not. Alonso's my favorite, but Harper and Walker are right there as well. Like all those guys have 2-homer upside. It's just out of that group, Alonso is facing the weaker pitcher. And he's cheaper than Harper. That's why I like him a little better. But like, you do want to try to play one of those three guys if you have salary sitting around. You can also do on FanDuel, like you got multiple Cubs down there. Both Bellinger and Paredes, along with Wisdom, are first base eligible. There's even decent cheap plays, but I much prefer spending up here. I think the best cheap plays are the Nationals or Aranda, although Aranda you can play at second instead. So like I've got a little bit of, we're calling him Chaparro, but I'm sure it's Chaparro or Chaparro. For the Nationals, him and Yepes are fine and cheap. You could do a little Rowdy Tellez as well as a cheaper one-off. Like Wisdom is going to be the very chalky, cheap one-off. So just be aware if you're playing Wisdom, you probably want the rest of your lineup not to be the chalk as well.
Go ahead, Carty.
I pretty much agree. You have the top tier. If you can get up to Alonso or Harper and Walker are good too. Great. The mid-range I don't like a lot. Like Goldie's fine, but otherwise I think you're going cheap. Wisdom is my preferred choice, but again, going to be chalky. So you can play Jake Bowers, you can play Chaparro, you can play Aranda, you can play Rowdy. They're all fine as salary savers if you're not spending up on the top tier.
Okay. Second base. Unless you got anything else on first base, Cheese, let it rip. Or Carty, sorry.
Second base. Brandon Lau on FanDuel, I think is probably going to be the top option, especially once you consider price. Like Ketel Marte is the best, but I think Lau's pretty close to him today, and you save a good bit of money. On DK, you can definitely go down further than that. Brendan Donovan is hitting fifth against Ortiz for 3.4. I think he's fine. You have some of that cheap national stuff that Cheese has been talking about. You have Jose Tena for 3.3. If you're not playing him at first, you have Aranda, who's eligible at second again. You have, for the bare minimum for Washington, you have Darren Baker. On FanDuel, I think Nico Horner is reasonably enough priced where I think he's a good play. And that's second.
Cheese, what are your thoughts here in second base?
Yeah, one thing I'll mention at second, like on these smaller slates where there's not a lot to love anywhere, I'm much more open to playing a batter against my pitcher. So, like, I'll have Brandon Lau in a lineup with Bayo and not worry about that at all. Marte on DK is crazy expensive, which is almost good because it'll keep his ownership down. So he's my favorite play if you can get there. I think Jose Tena is my favorite salary saver. Very close with Brendan Donovan. Yeah, that's about it. It's second base. It's a 6-game slate.
Yeah, I tagged Donovan. I like him for cash games tonight. I'll move over to third base. Got the big dog Raphael up top. And then some expert tags on Paredes and from the Cubs and Patrick Wisdom, another one. Gotta love a chalk Patrick Wisdom slate. This feels so good. Carty, what's up for third base?
Yeah, Patty the Tooth is a great play here too. Paredes in the same lineup's good. I like Bregman a lot tonight. I think he's just as good as Devers, and you get him for considerably cheaper and potentially similar ownership, especially on DK. So I like Bregman a lot. I mentioned liking Houston stacks a lot. Aside from those guys, though, it kind of gets gross. Like, you can take one-off shots, hope for a home run from Vientos or Suarez. But I think I'd probably prefer one of the Cubs guys or one of the expensive guys.
All right, Cheese?
Yeah, pretty good position. Similar to first base. Like, I do want to spend up. Like, I don't love playing chalk Patrick Wisdom when I can play Devers, Bregman, Paredes, and Vientos, probably all at lower ownership. Like, yes, I get it with Wisdom, but like, salary's not that much of a thing tonight. So I do want to spend up where I can, and for the most part, I can. And that's it. I have nothing to say. Nothing to say.
All right. We'll move over.
Isn't this a fun slate?
Yeah, it's enthralling. Shortstop, we have some high ceiling, high end guys here. Trey Turner, CJ Abrams, Dansby Swanson, who's decided to play baseball in the second half. He's been hot. Looks like, according to our RG projections, he is the chalk on DraftKings. Jeremy Pena in that Astros stack we were talking about earlier. A little bit more fun here at shortstop, Carty, even though I'm putting you to sleep here.
Sorry, here. Not you. Just this month is always so crazy busy. I'm just dragging, but I'm good. Yeah, Dansby Swanson's the best. He'll be chalky, but I like him a lot. I like Pena a lot to save some money. I think the Houston stuff tonight is one of the better ways to get different from the Cubs chalk. So I like him quite a bit. On FanDuel, it's not even hard to mix it up. Like, Swanson's not that much cheaper on FanDuel than he is from O'Neal Cruz or CJ Abrams or Trey Turner. So even though Swanson will be the highest owned there, mixing in the other guys in tournaments, I think makes more sense. On DK, it's a little bit more of a question. Swanson's a lot cheaper, but the other guy that I like Mason Wynn leading off for St. Louis, and I like Zach Neto quite a bit hitting second against Kikuchi. I said, Angel stacks definitely aren't crazy tonight, especially like a little mini Angel stack, I think is actually quite appealing.
Are you guys coffee drinkers? I feel you, Carty. Once we hit Thursday during the week is like, man, we're almost there. And then you just do it all over again.
I don't drink coffee, so maybe that's part of my problem. But yeah, it's just the overlap with baseball and football. It's always like just working nonstop all month.
Yeah. So yeah, inside industry secret, like every day I'm in Central Time. Every day around 4:00, I have a coffee. So that's why I'm still awake here for crunch time.
That's the secret sauce. Is that when you start piecing together the musings bright and early?
No, 4:00 p.m.
Oh.
I have so I have coffee with the musings in the morning, and then I have my afternoon coffee pre-crunch time.
There was a part of me where I was like, damn, Cheese is grinding at 4 a.m. because your musings are just that good. I wouldn't put it past you. but I tipped the cap. But yeah, the afternoon coffee is undefeated on during the midweek. But talk to me about
And
shortstop here.
100% French vanilla creamer. That is absolutely the go-to in the coffee. Yeah. So yeah, shortstop, same thing. Like, let's just take a moment and pause and say, it's so depressing that DraftKings just stopped O'Neal Cruz being a shortstop, and then he got hurt, and then like we just lost him with no fanfare, and it's just, what do you do? I do like O'Neal Cruz a lot on FanDuel, where, as Carty mentioned, they're like all the same price. So to me, Abrams and Cruz are the two I want on FanDuel. On DK, definitely Swanson's like the chalky, the cash game play, even a fine tournament play at the ownership. But where I can get up to Abrams, I'm absolutely doing that. Otherwise, basically the same as everything else.
All right. We'll move on to the outfield. Drop those questions. We got about 6:40 p.m. Eastern here. I have FanDuel pricing up. It's good to see Kyle Tucker playing baseball again, boys. Talk to me about the outfield, Carty. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I like the Cubs guys. I like the Houston guys. I like the St. Louis guys. Suzuki, Wisdom, Happ for Chicago, Alvarez, Tucker for Houston. Like this is kind of the spot where there's a lot of good things to spend up for. Some of the other spots are kind of like, well, this one has a lot of good stuff. For St. Louis, you have Burleson, you have Nootbaar. I think they're both. You have Donovan on DraftKings rather, who's also outfield eligible if you want to play him there. Those are kind of the teams that I'm picking from in the outfield. I don't think you have to overthink it too much. Obviously, if you're doing a stack, though, if you're stacking Phillies, play Schwarber, play Harper, like whatever.
Cheese, did you mention the Mets earlier? Was that you?
I did. That was I said my second favorite stack.
Massive price difference for JD Martinez between both sites as well. Because I tagged him as a salary saver on FanDuel, and then I this morning I said, "Wow, 4,400 on DK and 29 on FanDuel." So talk to me about outfield, and some of these Mets are popping up.
Yeah, before I talk to you about it, Luch, as the fill-in host, usually when someone mentions Nootbaar, we get an exciting moment from the host. Who did Carty say as a Cardinals outfielder you could play?
Nootbaar?
Nootbaar. That's how you have to say it.
Nootbaar. Come on, Luch.
Well, I'm
Get
still
that
in
coffee rolling.
What was the Yasmer doodle we used to do? The Yastrzemski
Yasmer Brodusky.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, outfield. Suzuki, Happ, Carroll, Alvarez, Tucker, Warber. Just play all those guys. I don't know how many lineup spots you have. I guess I lean slightly to the Cubs as my first choice out of all those great spend up outfielders. But I'm playing all of that stuff. Throw O'Neal Cruz in there on DK. Throw a little Dylan Cruz and James Wood in there to be different. Throw a little Taylor Ward in there with your Angels mini stacks. Along with the cheap Cardinals that Carty just mentioned, we'll put Tyrone Taylor in there. I think that's all I want to mention. Like you can play everybody, but those are the highlights.
Okay. I'm not going to mess this one up. We saw Dean's Dongs in the chat. I need some home run calls from you boys. So, Carty, who's going deep tonight? Let me hear it.
Top guy is Jordan Alvarez, which not a huge surprise. Off the board, I kind of like Taylor Ward tonight. The more I look at it and think about it, like I think a little mini Angel stack makes a lot of sense tonight. Ward is good. Ward has some power. On the betting side, Ward actually shows the most value from a betting perspective. Plus 600 at Bet365 is showing solid value tonight.
Oh, there we go. We need a Nootbaar noise, actually. That'd be cool. Can we get we have a Nootbaar noise? Steve, can we get a Nootbaar from the soundboard? Anyway, Cheese, you got Newt Bar in your home run picks or what?
No, but so good. So I think we'll go. I want to go a little off the board somewhere as well. That'll be Jake Bowers for the off the board thing. Less off the board, I'll go with Seiya Suzuki. And how about Mark Vientos?
Okay, Steve, the Mets fan. I get it. I see what you're doing here. Mets fan chiming in with the Vientos call. I like it. I like it. Hey, you guys got some questions? Drop them in the chat. Got 6:44 Eastern. Greatness 24 in the Discord. I'll throw it over to you, Carty, for FanDuel GPPs. You like Tampa Bay or Washington more?
I think it's Washington for me.
Okay. We don't have a ton of questions, so Cheese, I'll fire that back at you. Washington or Tampa Bay for FanDuel GPPs?
I'll go Washington.
Okay. Scrolling up in the comments here. I don't know if I missed any earlier, but I know for sure I see one question from Cloud. DKGPP, tough one here, Carty. Alvarez or Tucker?
I mean, they're both great. Alvarez is, I think, the better choice, but like you're really kind of just flipping a coin on them.
Okay, I see Blink is typing in the live stream chat. Get us some questions in here. You know, total just like naked eye stuff here. I feel like the Angels have destroyed some chalk pitching this year. Maybe it's every time I happen to just, play that slate or whatever, but it just feels that way.
I think it's like, you always remember when you played a chalk pitcher and they get blown. Like, so I feel like you can say that for a lot of teams because, like, that's the thing that's going to stick in your mind when it happens.
Yep. That bad recency bias, right? QQ from Cloud, Carty, Kikuchi, and Myers, or Eric Fetty and Alvarez. Kikuchi and Myers, or Eric Fetty and Alvarez.
Trying to figure out who Myers and Alvarez are.
Is Jake starting? Let me double check here. Is that what the swap would be? Jake Myers?
I assumed it was Tobias Myers, but is there an Alvarez starting tonight that I'm forgetting about? He might have mistyped, or I'm missing something. If you could just clarify that, Cloud.
Yeah, that'd be good. Let me bounce back here to the Discord real quick. DKGPP. Cheese, our guy Blink has $3,500 for a shortstop. Trevor Story, Acuna, or Walls? Who would you prefer?
Not Walls. I think I would go Story there.
Okay. So yeah, Carty, are we clear on the 2v2 question?
Yeah. So he was talking about Houston batters, Yordan Alvarez and Jake Myers.
Right.
I think you definitely do the Alvarez. I think Alvarez Fetty personally.
Okay. Question from Steve OJ in the Discord. Cheese. SP2. Would you take Little or Ortiz?
Little.
Okay. QQ for FanDuel single entry Carty. Who do we pay down from Kikuchi? Okay, so like single entry, I think he's asking, are you okay with fading Kikuchi on FanDuel for single entry? I think that's the question.
Yeah, you certainly don't have to play Kikuchi. He's the best guy, but he'll be the chalkiest. But he's really expensive on FanDuel. You could just as easily play Fetty or Brandon Bayo or Brandon Pfaadt. Like, there's a lot of guys you can play tonight.
We got a Breyer's ice cream mention in the YouTube chat. Cheese, is that your go-to? I'm assuming.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's my go-to, but I mean, yes, I eat it a lot. my go-to is Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah,
can't go.
What
really
flavor?
all of it's my go-to. My favorite Ben and Jerry's flavor is New York Super Fudge Chunk.
I don't think I've ever had that.
It's it's chocolate ice cream with like a mix of different like nuts and some chocolate covered nuts, and then like this dark chocolate and white chocolate, like little rectangles. It's just glorious.
I like it.
I don't think I missed any questions. If I did, someone yell at me real quick. I saw Yingling or PBR tonight. Well, I grew up in Pennsylvania, so I'm pro Yingling if I had to pick one. Ben and Jerry's all day says power in the chat. You gotta love it. Looks like Greatness has one more question coming in the Discord. You guys got anything else on your mind before we inch closer to lock or anything we missed or anything like that?
No, I mean it's a small slate. I think we kind of covered at least everything that I think is important.
QQ from Greatness, real quick. Assad or Brian Bell for FanDuel GPP?
That's gonna be Bella for me.
Okay. Favorite overall hitter today says Flying Armbar. Gun to head. Favorite overall hitter, Cheese. I don't know. High floor, high ceiling kind of guy, I suppose.
I'm just gonna assume it's tournament only, and I'm gonna say it's Pete Alonso.
Okay. What about you, Carty?
Give me say Suzuki.
Okay, say Suzuki. Love that. Love that. That's about it. Producer Steve, can I get one more quick soundboard chirp in here? How many? If the Mets are gonna throw up 10 on 10 tonight, let me hear something crazy. You're on fire today. Paul says he's 14 miles from the Yingling Brewery. Paul, are you in the Skook? I grew up next to the Skook, so sounds like we were close by. I guess that's it. We did have one question about Showdown, Cheese, and someone asked, who your captain was tonight. Are you're rolling the dice on some NFL, or you're sticking with MLB?
I made 20 lineups, and I do some weird things because I know I'm not going to win, and so I'm throwing random darts at these Patriots wide receivers. Like one of them will accidentally catch a touchdown pass and kind of break the slate by default.
Cool. Carty, any into
It's
Showdown?
by the way, it's poke. P-O-L-K. Poke. Polk? No, poke.
Poke, silent L. Yeah. Carty, is it going to be a snoozer tonight, or are we going against the grain? What are you thinking?
I mean, I don't think it's going to be a great game. I don't play a lot of Showdown. I have plenty of bets tonight on it. I think there was a lot of betting value here, but Demario Douglas is the guy that I'm really cheering for tonight.
He's one of them too. Yeah. It's cheap random Patriots wide receiver accidental touchdown.
Yeah, you just don't know. I was looking at the alignments earlier, and KJ Osborne was like all over the place compared to the other guys. He was playing some slot and playing some wide, and I feel like he has maybe here I am name dropping the third kind of volatile receiver, but in my mind, maybe he has the most opportunity. But I mean, you're right. It could be one of them. Poke had like an 8-yard touchdown catch on 2 catches last week. I mean, that might win you some money in Showdown if it happens tonight. But I guess that's it. Fellas, it's been real. Thank you so much for joining me. And chat, it's been a pleasure. Appreciate y'all. For producer Steve and for everybody on Grinders Live and for Cheese and Carty, I'm the Luch. Good luck tonight, everybody, and have a good night.